What happens when someone builds a company that solves a problem that the market was never designed to see? That's the question at the center of this series. 7 founders, 7 companies. None of these companies fit the playbook. They don't look like the startups that get the headlines or the funding. They're not optimizing for the fastest exit or the biggest valuation. They're building in the space between what the market rewards and what communities actually need. And the question isn't whether what they're building matters, it's whether the systems around them, the capital, the infrastructure, and the institutions are designed to let them succeed. This is the Social Venture Studio Founder Series. 7 conversations with founders building at the edge of what innovation looks like when it's designed to serve more than the people writing the checks. I'm Kevin McGinnis. This is the Disruption Lab. Montré, you're walking through downtown LA one evening. You need edge control, which is an essential product for Black women, and you can't find it. One product, one city block, and you saw an entire industry's failure in that moment. What did you see?
Well, that's amazing that you know that story. That is definitely the genesis of AMP. My sorority sister came into town and she was looking for a cultural favorite product. And Angel and I kind of stared at each other like, how do we tell her that you have to go into more of like an urban, community? And, us being in a high, dense metropolitan city
It's
that's super,
LA.
right,
Yeah.
super diverse. The fact that we had to say, like, oh, you have to go 25 minutes, maybe 35, 45 with traffic just to get a product was like an eye awakening moment. And so from that dinner, we kind of felt like, okay, our beauty needs, which are culturally very important to us, were not being met by the current capacity of just a city. And so, yeah, we surveyed about 350 of our closest friends. No, not really, not 350, but um, through that survey, we really found out it wasn't just a problem in downtown LA, it was just a problem across the nation.
And so, if I understand the origin story, there was a coffee shop in Atlanta that was part of this story as well. Um,
Coffee shop in
this
Atlanta.
is where maybe you and your sorority sisters actually ideated around Amp Beauty. I think I read that
Yes, it
somewhere.
was, so yeah, we went to school in Atlanta,
Okay.
but the conversation actually happened. The conversation actually happened in downtown LA.
Okay. All
So,
right.
that was the kind of over cocktails, what girls love on a Saturday night and
Yeah.
good music, and it blossomed into a beautiful
Let's
business.
start a business. Okay. So you've had the opportunity to manage prestige beauty at Neiman Marcus, Revolve. You have an educational background in this space. You were inside the system, so you've seen how this works. Who gets shelf space? How brands get in? All of the logistics and mechanisms behind all of this stuff. What did you learn about the system from the inside that made you decide to build something different?
That's a good question. I previously led a $14 million cosmetics and fragrance department. So as you mentioned, prestige beauty with La Mer, Chantecaille, Sicily, all these high-end brands. And we would have brand founders come into the space. This is especially, I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but when like trending beauty or like indie beauty was like blossoming. So that would mean like brands on social media were starting to get more buzz, and smaller niche brands that were serving underrepresented communities or maybe founders. So we have like pioneers in the space like Carol's daughter who was leading, kind of championing this new kind of path. But in this role, I realized, hey, my friends are starting amazing brands. I'm looking on social, the brands that I love and want to carry, I would love to see inside the retail department store. And it was just so much red tape and bureaucracy and just um, a lot that I uncovered as I kind of went on this journey to research and explore more, like what does it actually take to get a brand into retail?
So you launched during COVID, which I imagine was its own experience in and of itself. But also, it was during a moment where Black-owned businesses, Black-supported businesses, there was a lot of movement behind all of that. And I think at some point, you had expressed that a lot of it felt performative. And I think in hindsight now, we saw that a lot of it probably was in a moment and performative. What was it like to actually be building a business, building something real inside a movement that somewhat felt manufactured from your perspective?
Yes, it really felt surreal. So we actually formed AMP in 2019. So we were already like pinky toe in the
On
water
your
of
way.
like, okay, this is we know there's a problem. How do we solve it? And kind of just those initial like I call it like the sexy stage of business where you're thinking of fonts and colors and logos. And so we were like really deep in that stage. And then COVID happened. And we're like, wow. I mean, unfortunately, on the backs of something that was, the injustice of just what's happening in our society. But to your point, it really did create a shift of momentum and just the economics of Black business and underrepresented businesses gaining additional exposure, whether that was Beyonce's Be Good Foundation or larger retailers dedicating dollars. So we really saw this shift of like, how are we going to launch this business? We started with $350 we would put into an account, all three of us, and that got us our domain, our website. And then as the shift happened during COVID, we realized, okay, a lot of opportunities and a lot of opportunities and resources were in the forefront. So we did a lot of research and started applying and received grants and funding. And it was really just like a, a light bulb moment of like, wow, a whole new area or area of business that we could, kind of get funding for our business. So, yeah, it was like kind of like this bittersweet of like the heaviness of what was happening and then the joy of like, wow, the independence we feel for being able to like launch our own business.
So one of the things that's impressed me about working with you through the program has been that this is not a DEI movement. This is not a DEI business. This is about brands that don't have access because that's really what gets you on the shelves, gets you merchandise, gets you in with the large brands and the distribution. If you know, you can get in. If you don't have access to break in, regardless of where you come from, it's very hard institutionally, structurally, to do that. We know that this impacts founders of color disproportionately, but this isn't just a representation problem. This is a structural issue. This is a bigger issue than that. How does AMP change that infrastructure and that structural? How do you address that structural issue?
Yeah, so we address it by democratizing access to retail. And what that means to us is providing data and technology to help these brands grow and scale. So there's like the foundation of building a business that's already really expensive. And then when you go to competing against like larger brands who have marketing budgets, I read something recently where, you need $10 million to launch a beauty brand. And to do it the right way, it's not far off from that number. So where does that leave founders, underrepresented founders? Where does that leave them in the space to create and build for cultural relevance? So like what's culturally relevant, going back to the edge control story, we have brands from Turkey who their their beauty culture regimen is actually like a exfoliating cloth. So each culture has a different nuance that may not be mainstream, but very important to that culture and has, a cult following around these certain products. So how does a brand with little resources, little marketing budget break into this space? We did a lot of research based on, okay, what are the tools that larger companies are using to help get that edge? And a lot of the time, it's market insights. Just to pay for market insights, that's anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a month to know what trends are forecasting to be able to even succeed and grow in this space. So a smaller brand who has an amazing product just cannot afford the capacity to compete, even just which that should just be shared knowledge on how the market is doing and there's some resources available, but that's just one example of how if you don't have the resources to invest in that, you're kind of behind the curve already. And then the bureaucracy of just gaining access to these shelf space. Typically, as someone you know, typically you're able to pay for a large distribution company to kind of help you bridge those relationships. And as a small founder, a small business owner, you just don't have those resources. So that is very challenging. And so we're working to really democratize that by providing data to these brands, using our historical data from 2019 and how the market has shifted to give them the leg up, providing them with technology. A lot of them, can't get on the excuse me, give them the data and technology. A lot of them can't get on TikTok Shop, which you may think seems, really simple, like join TikTok Shop, but there's a huge technological gap on what it takes to upload your products to these platforms.
Right.
That founder just may not be equipped. So now because the founder doesn't have the resources, lacks the technical expertise to participate in this market, consumers are being intentionally left out and not able to find the products that will work for them.
And this isn't just in the support of the emerging brands. I mean, this is a massive market. The beauty market is just I think $9 billion like overall opportunity, and it's become very segmented. It's become very niche around all of these different cultural differences and so on. So it's in the retailer's best interest to do this as well, right?
Absolutely. Globally, it's a $900 billion,
$900 billion.
but that's on the global scales. 9 billion is just the emerging beauty market, and emerging beauty founders are taking up 15 to 20% share year over year. So this is a segment that's constantly growing, and emerging brands are looking at alternative ways to distribute their products, whether that is through social media, whether that is through a TikTok channel, whether that's going to your local flea market or farmer's market. But um, there's multiple ways now that the retailers are still trying to keep them out. So at AMP, we're just trying to figure out how do we educate and get to the deeper challenge of what it means to be retail ready, and that's what all retailers are looking for.
Now, you have another point of differentiation that I want to talk about, which is the idea that you curate for chemical integrity. And it's not just the marketability, it's not just the data around reach and outcomes from that perspective, but that's a safety standard, and it's not a marketing choice. Your co-founder Angel said something that I thought was striking. When we solve issues for Black women, we're ultimately solving issues in the beauty industry at large. So what does that mean in practice?
In practice, Black women are 9 times more likely to be targeted by harmful chemicals. This goes back to perms and straightening products and Eurocentric beauty standards. And so when we are disproportionately targeted and we have the number one spend in beauty and personal care, it feels kind of lopsided, and you have to kind of take a step back and see actually what is happening here. And so if we solve this problem for Black women, underrepresented women, we're solving it for the entire ecosystem. So at AMP, we have a nurse practitioner in-house. So as brands apply to get it on our platform, they send us samples. Our nurse practitioner reviews those samples and ingredient stories to make sure there's no harmful chemicals. And then as of recently, we just partnered with the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics, which is hosted by Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. And they do a lot of work with helping founders figure out how to take their unsafe formulas and transition those ingredients, which is extremely expensive, by the way, to more, safe ingredients for consumers today.
So when we talk about social impact, which is one of the, this is how we got connected through a social impact program. It's more than just the access and the support of an emerging market and underrepresented founders. It's also the social impact of environmental and, safety issues related to the products. Have you rejected any products?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. And with our work with Campaign for Safer Cosmetics, we're trying to figure out how do we reject these products, but also give them an alternative to reformulate and contacts to manufacturers that can help them kind of walk them through that process, and maybe some additional funding. So yeah, we do reject some products, but we keep the option open and try to provide as much resources as possible so they can reformulate and um, provide safer products for consumers.
All right, I want to shift a little bit and talk about the business and the execution of the business itself. Walk me through how AMP works. You're a brand. You reach out. Like, what's the process? What happens from the moment that they apply into the process to be an AMP brand at that point?
Yeah, so use you as an
Oh,
example.
fantastic! I love this
Okay.
exercise.
So Kevin starts shampoo, hair care brand, and you want to join AMP, well, you're obviously just looking for retail distribution. You have an amazing product, and now you want to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. So you discover AMP Beauty. We have an application. We have an application online that you will apply to, and then within a week or two, we will evaluate just from like your social profile. We have a new retail intelligence score, so we take in your application and feed it through our algorithm to figure out, okay, where are you on this scale of becoming retail ready? And through that process, we either give you a yes, which is very exciting, or a not right now, and maybe alternative suggestions on what we're looking for to make sure. But we've started with really small companies and have worked with really large companies, so we kind of tailor our approach to fit the needs of the business. And so after you apply, you send your samples, our nurse practitioner vets them. Yeah, so then you get the final approval after that vetting process. You join AMP. We start with a minimum of 25 SKUs per product. We don't want to take on too much inventory, a lesson we learned on very early.
Sure.
And so we want to figure out our goal is to figure out how can we move that volume. Is it through our .com? Is it through our partnership with Target? Is it through our partnership with Macy's? Maybe your product resonates better at events and activations where we're IRL and in person. And so once we kind of discover that process, then we start to scale up from there and figure out how to capture more market share.
All right, since you brought it up, I'm going to ask. You mentioned events, so talk to me about Daycation, Tennis Love LA.
Oh my gosh, yes. So one of our strategies is really engaging with community. And so I love beauty events. It was one of my favorite things to do in my previous work. And so we host different wellness activities to bring the consumers together, the customers, and learn more about the products because it is a huge learning curve. These are new brands that you probably never heard of, but it's really about that storytelling. So we leverage our events to not only engage with our community, but to anchor it around, hey, look at these amazing products that are in your community. So it's more of a soft landing and not like, okay, this is a brand I've never heard of, but more kind of massaging that and making consumers aware of just what's going on in their community.
Was this like your first pop up or one of your first, shots on goal in terms of trying this marketing
Yes,
strategy?
we did pickleball.
Okay.
We've had a pickleball event. We've had a tennis event that was really popular. We're actually doing like a pool beach vibe event end of summer to kind of have a capstone for the summer. But the events are really popular with getting creators, getting influencers, and just the ROI after the event from the content is really what helps the brand not only build up their social, but customer reviews, testimonies. You're able to talk to people in real life and get feedback right away on your product. So it's really a great opportunity for brands to find out what's actually happening in the market without investing in those $1,000 marketing softwares.
Yeah. So that's where you are, what you've done. Let's talk a bit about where you're going. So talk to me about the data play. And so you've aggregated behavioral data across 130 plus beauty brands. You're now looking to license that data to these large retailers, putting a price tag on that. And this is a fundamentally different business than, kind of where you're at and the idea of consignment, beauty retail. Um, where does this position AMP now, or how does this position AMP differently in the marketplace?
Yeah, so we started as a marketplace, and as we got accepted into Techstars, so that was like a big pivotal moment for us, and it was honestly heaven sent because that's right before the downturn of consumer. Because if you can imagine COVID, everyone was shopping online,
Oh yeah.
so beauty and personal care was, the biggest thing since sliced bread. And so moving forward, hindsight looking back, we didn't realize how important, diving deeper into our customer. And we really, during Techstars, we figured out, okay, we felt like we were adding more noise into the space by providing just more products because the brand founders weren't able to grow and scale. So we're like, okay, if the brand founder, why aren't they able to grow and scale? Is because they lack the resources. So we're focusing on consumers who, they love the products, that was the easy part, but the hard part was actually providing the resources to the brands because our thesis is if you invest in the brands, then they're going to naturally, that's what they love to do. They're going to naturally create amazing products. So what it takes to get the brand to succeed is technology and data. So we start to pour in, okay, how do we kind of shift our business model to more of a B2B play? And so we switched from our beauty shoppers being our primary customer to our beauty founders being our primary customer. So that mind shift in our business model and just our mentality helped us to pour into our brands so they can grow and scale. And so that led us to, okay, as we're talking to buyers from, the top retailers, they're like, okay, well, we need your brands to be retail ready. And every retailer I would talk to, retail ready meant something different to each one. So I'm like, okay, how are founders navigating this process if you're changing the standard per retailer? And one retailer would say, hey, we're looking for brands who could spend 30% of their revenue on marketing. Okay, bam, that's one key point, data point. And then retailer B will be like, okay, well, who do you have in your portfolio that's doing 15% month over month growth? So we train this algorithm to pick up on which, kind of like playing matchmaking. First, identifying who's retail ready and what it means and giving clear standards on, hey, your product pages need to be optimized. Hey, you need to hit month over month growth before you can even apply to retailer A. So it's demystifying that in the educational piece alone is why we're able to get our brands into larger retailers. And so taking it back, the data and technology play with the retail readiness score, pairing it with, the ideal retailer that would set them up for success, kind of makes this new foundation that we've built, and now provides a service not only for the retailers, but gives more transparency to what it takes to actually grow for the brand founders.
Walk me through that pivot as a CEO. How hard has that been? Like, what's been, your journey as a CEO, your journey as a co-founder, the entrepreneurial side of this, and where you started, where you're at, where you're going. Just talk me through that experience a little bit for you.
Oh my gosh, it has been just a resilient journey. It has, I mean, it's really hard to get the team. Well, it wasn't hard, but it can be a little, um, it can just be a little daunting to go to your team and be like, okay, I know we are focused on beauty shoppers and how we can optimize, getting great products in their hands, but now that's not our primary customer anymore. So as a CEO, it's more about that storytelling aspect. And you touched on this yesterday, actually, about, the why and how, coaching them on not just giving them, hey, this is what we're doing, but the why behind it. And I think in the early days, we did a good job of giving them the why we were switching our customer base from the beauty shoppers to the consumers. And once that story was told, it was a pretty easy transition. And then we saw our sales or our revenue just 6x year over year just from that one pivot of switching our customer base.
So, honest conversation. You've received a lot of visibility. Techstars, you mentioned that. I think you've been on Roku. Emma Grede is advising you. CNBC, Business of Fashion. Um, it's a long list, and you've gotten a tremendous amount of visibility. You've got Macy's, Target.com. You've got partners. From the outside, AMP looks like a breakout. Looks like a runaway. From the inside, I think some days it probably doesn't feel that like it feels like there's a headwind. Talk to me about that gap. Talk to me about where do you think that comes from, and what do you need to do to get over that hump right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Based on my experience, I would hear people talk about, "Oh my god, it's really hard to get to your first million," and it is
Yeah,
extremely
yeah.
hard to get to the first million. I can't wait to see what it looks like on the other side, but I think it really just comes down to it being an educational gap, a learning gap. I'm the first gen college student in my family. Um, I'm the first one to have my own business, so the people I surround myself are not, growing up, we're not entrepreneurs or so it's just a huge learning curve. And I think um, that learning curve can be used to my advantage because I'm really scrappy, I'm really resilient. I don't even hear no. You say no, I'm like, okay, well, that just means not right now, or I didn't ask the question properly. So it has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages as far as like macroeconomics and what that actually means, and the barriers that are in place just, you know, that kind of prevent growth from happening in certain industries and just infrastructure alone. So yeah, it's challenging for sure, but I'm excited for the future, and AMP in my mind is already $1 billion company. I'm just waiting for everyone else to catch up.
Yeah, yeah, great. That's amazing. Manifest that stuff. So you talk about the resilience, the grit, the unwillingness to hear no. What was Montre like as a kid?
Oh my gosh, I have the funniest story. So, Montré was actually very entrepreneurial as a
All
child.
right, this is where you were headed from the
Yes.
beginning.
So, I believe in elementary school, for some reason, ladybugs loved me. So, they would fly on me, and all my friends thought it was the coolest thing ever.
I
So,
think that's magical. Like, I think there's something behind that, right? We
right.
should ask our conspiracy theory
What
expert
is
here,
the
if they believe that.
Yeah, what is the meaning behind ladybugs? I'm really curious now. So, I would sell ladybugs for $1. That was, like, my first experience. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, "All my friends want them, and okay, give me $1." And then they would give me dollars, and then I think a week later, I was in the principal office, and they were like, "Montre, you can't you're killing these ladybugs inside these plastic bags that you're handing out with ladybugs."
Yeah.
And so, that was kinda Montre as a child. I'm the eldest sister of, 3 girls, and so I take, being a role model to them very seriously and letting them know, like, regardless of your social economic background, that, we still live in America. It has, a really bright future for us, and there's opportunity everywhere. And so it's really, what you put into it. And so I think being a role model was really the core foundation of me growing up. And then, the entrepreneurial side that I suppressed, and then after college realized, actually, this is what I love to do. I love beauty and I love business, so let's combine the 2 and see what happens.
When you say you suppressed it, I'm just curious, is this, and I've heard this before, not a viable path is the, I think, phrase I've heard someone say. I didn't believe it was a viable path for
Mhm.
me. What changed? Like, was it the experience in LA? Was it the experience in college? What was it that kind of reinvigorated that, wait, I can do this kind of mentality for you?
That's a great question. I believe it came post-college. I think in college, I saw that there were so many different facets of just, like, career choices, but again, working for a corporation or exploring different industries, and just not knowing what it actually takes to launch a business. And so I just always thought that was way out of my league or too far fetched. And so I think with the advancement of technology, just making things more accessible when it comes to YouTube and just learning more about the space. And um, after college, I secured a job at TNT and TBS in their PR department, and that really wasn't a fit. And so I did a lot of research one night, and I was like, okay, what am I actually passionate about? And it was beauty. And so I found this university called FITM, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and they literally had a beauty industry management program. And I was like, bingo, that's what I want to do. And so I just really always felt trapped in like corporate spaces where I would innovate. I was the fastest promotion that my previous employer saw in the history of the company. I was there for 6 months and I got promoted. Everybody was like, "Who is this girl?" Because I just came in with like a bright perspective and I wanted to innovate. And I realized in corporate structures, sometimes those ideas and innovations sometimes get stifled, not due to your own lack of, knowledge or ambition, just based on the foundational infrastructure that's around you. So wasn't able to express myself in its full capacity in the business side. So then I just realized, hey, I can always go back to the corporate world. I can always go back to the corporate world, but how do I, let me try something that's new, different, and scary, and which was starting a business.
Oh my gosh, when we were talking about selling into enterprise yesterday, I didn't realize that maybe it was traumatic for you to talk
I
about
know,
how
I
you
know.
innovate or how you can't innovate and some of the headwinds there. So
Right.
yeah,
But now being on the other side, it's like,
you understand it.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so you talk about technology. Let's talk a little bit about the technology. So your AI powered analytics dashboard is your technology moat for where you're taking AMP right now. The retail readiness score. What does the dashboard actually show a brand that they can't get from Shopify or their own internal maybe data that they have?
Yeah, so our dashboard, we have two. One is our brand portal that supports our brands. And so they're able to aggregate all of their sales channels, which we sell through their own Shopify store. And once they connect their Shopify store, it's able to feed into the retail readiness score. And so they're able to see literally on a weighted chart, it's like a FICO score, like what do I need to do to repair my credit, right? So you're able to take line item by line item, whether that's how much you're spending on marketing, whether that's your PDP pages are not fully optimized, whether that's you have a hero product, but a retailer is not going to feel comfortable betting on you because it sells out every 3 months. You're not able to keep up with the replenishment and the demand. So we're taking all the signals that these brands are giving us and providing them with clear line by line breakdown. This is where you are in each of these 7 categories that we define. And here are, based on AI suggestions, which we've trained, here are the recommended suggestions that will get you maybe from a 44 today to maybe like a 60 in 30 months. The real goal is to get brands at an 80 retail readiness score. And that's really important because once brands reach an 80, they are 2.7 times more likely to secure a larger PO.
You said something. So the program that you're in right now is in Kansas City, and
Yes.
you're based in LA. I love that reaction. You know, what did you think Casey could offer, and where are you at? Like, what does Casey offer? Kansas City offer AMP that LA doesn't, or maybe adds to what LA can offer AMP right now. And what do you bring into the Kansas City ecosystem with what you're doing?
Yeah, so Kansas City, first we looked at our data of our customer base, where our brands are. A lot of brands are in this middle America area, and there's a lot of like positives to be into this area. You know, 2 day shipping when it comes to supply chain and operations. So first it was like looking at our customer base, looking at our founders, historically what has happened in Kansas City, who are the major retailers. You know, north we have Target, south, east, west we have
Southeast.
we have Walmart,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So these are two major conglomerates. Very attractive to a small brand to just be in proximity. A lot of it is proximity and access. And so in LA, it's a lot of noise.
Mhm.
It is very it doesn't support the growth of, although we have a spike in emerging founders who are, it kind of caps you at a certain level of growth. And so I was just ready to break out of that noise, and the expectation is so high and overstated that's not even necessary. And so bringing that expertise of LA to Kansas City, where where the competition is so fierce, so we can, we know how to break through that noise, and hopefully we can give value to emerging beauty founders in Kansas City, and also exposure to the West Coast ecosystem. Consumer spend is up. They love shopping on beauty and personal care. So how can we merge these two ecosystems of, the dominance of the retailers in this area and the consumer spend of the West Coast? And in my opinion, it just seems like a perfect match.
I love that. So I want to talk about communicating your business, how you talk about your business. You've had the opportunity to pitch to Emma Grede, Ashley Graham on national television. You've had the opportunity to communicate what you do to tech stars. You've talked to VCs. What have you learned about how you communicate your business um, that you wish you'd have known when you started that process?
That's a really great question. I think originally we weren't dreaming big enough. We just thought, having a business and having a marketplace would be enough. And it was kind of more like an onion where we start to peel back these layers of, okay, what and get into the root of the problem. So I would looking back, I'm just like we weren't dreaming big enough. I think we raised our first check and we stopped. We were like,
There we
"This is
go.
great. We're gonna solve all the world problems." And it's like, it was just $100,000, which is amazing, and I'm so grateful for. But in the scheme of the VC ecosystem and how much money is deployed annually, it is literally like a grain of sand in the ocean. And so looking back, and sometimes that naivete, right, kind of blinds you from, becoming jaded or, not pursuing certain opportunities. So looking back, I would definitely say just dream bigger and communicating that vision, being more passionate about the storytelling side and, finding people who really align with the social impact work that we're doing. I'm so grateful for you and this program because, I didn't realize the spectrum of startups. You're trying to fit into one box, but there's like so many other boxes there, and so you're fighting this battle of like it's not that we're telling the wrong story, we're telling it to the wrong people. And so that mindset shift really helped, and I'm just grateful for this program because it really helped me see like, oh my god, I'm not going crazy, we're not doing anything wrong, we're literally just talking to the wrong group of people that really don't understand what we're building. So
Um, I was going to say when AMP succeeds at scale, if every emerging beauty founder has access to retail distribution, to the data, and that curation that you all are providing into the marketplace, what changes about the beauty aisle the next time that you walk into one of these large retailers?
yeah, I imagine the beauty aisle being filled with discovery. That is the core of the beauty industry, is just like discovering new products, new trends, new formulations, new ingredient stories, new founder stories that have voices that haven't, been heard before. And so AMP at full scale capacity, younger Montré, knows that, she can start a skincare brand and not have the roadblocks of, mass distribution, and she can dream bigger on what it means and see her products in larger retailers or in the hands of customers to whom it matters the most.
As a CEO, where do you want to see AMP in 5 years?
That's a really great question. In 5 years, I would love retailers to embrace our technology, democratize access to retail, provide, founders with opportunities beyond, just the beauty industry. So looking at other consumer package, other CPG categories like active, fitness, stationery, gifts, food and beverage. Like I see us growing beyond just what we've built in the beauty category and extending that to other categories.
So all the retailers that are listening right now, that are watching this, where do they find you? What's the next step for them to get to Ant Beauty?
Yes, they can find us at antbeauty.com. And I don't know if I give my email. You can email me directly.
We'll go to
Go to
antbeauty.com.
Amp
Yeah.
or contact Kevin.
Yeah,
He's
reach out to
pretty
us.
accessible, and he'll put you in contact.
Well, we're here for it. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks
Yes.
for being here today.
No,
Thanks for
thank
being a
you,
part of this
Kevin.
program. So we're excited to see the journey that you're on, and happy to support kind of the mission that you're on as well. So
Yes, thank you, and thank Kansas City for opening, your arms to us and embracing what we're building. So more to come.
more to come for
Yes.
sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.